Hailing from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, today's biggest puncher and hardest hitting knockout artist in the heavyweight division is the Bronze Bomber Deontay Wilder. Wilder is the former WBC World Heavyweight Champion. Starting as a basketball player, Wilder got a late start to his boxing career, but it didn't take long for him to start gaining notice as the United States' next big heavyweight star. Wilder has managed to rack up a 91% knockout ratio with 42 in his 46 total fights. More impressive, in his 43 wins, Wilder has knocked out all but one of his opponents for a 98% knockout ratio in his wins. This has made him must-see TV and one of Alabama's most famous athletes. Wilder's knockout streak includes wins over former WBC champion Bermane Stiverne and 2 knockout wins over former WBA interim world heavyweight champion Luis King Kong Ortiz. Wilder's biggest rival is none other than former IBF, WBO, WBA, IBO, and current lineal and WBC world heavyweight champion, the Gypsy King Tyson Fury. The two men engaged in a classic trilogy of fights between 2018 and 2021, with Wilder drawing once and losing twice to the 6'9" Brit. Wilder did drop Fury multiple times in the series, though Fury refused to stay down. Wilder is looking to recapture his status as the most dangerous man in boxing. Frankie Randall may not be a spicy enough name for many, but the Surgeon is a fighter of note. Birmingham's finest, Randall is the former WBC and WBA World Super Lightweight Champion. Randall's career spanned from 1983 to 2005, 3 decades of work. Randall was a very good technical boxer, and while he wasn't necessarily a knockout artist, he could punch with a respectable 42 knockouts and 58 victories. This puts him at around 72% as far as knockout ratio. Randall is most notably known for being the first man to defeat then 89-0 WBC World Super Lightweight Champion and a man regarded as the greatest Mexican boxer of all time, Julio Cesar Chavez, in 1994. The win sent shockwaves around the sport and instantly made Randall Mexico's public enemy number 1. Randall dropped the title in his rematch with Chavez, but this didn't solely define his career. Randall also shared the ring with a number of other top-level champions and contenders such as Edwin Rosario, Martin Kogi, Oba Carr, Antonio Margarito, and Freddie Pendleton. Randall definitely earned a place on this list. You'd think a heavyweight with 80 knockouts and 90 victories would be a household name. The Leaperville Shadow George Godfrey hails from Mobile, Alabama. It could be because he mostly applied his trade in the 1920s and 30s, but Godfrey was certainly no slouch. At 6'2.5" with a 79.5-inch reach, Godfrey had a combination of skill, speed, and strength that made him a deadly challenger in his era. He picked up the world colored heavyweight title in 1926, but the lineal world heavyweight title remained elusive throughout his career. 11 fights into his career, and Godfrey had already fought and twice lost to the great Boston Bone Crusher Sam Langford, a fighter regarded as the greatest of all time. Not long after that, Godfrey was in with former Canadian heavyweight champion Jack Renault on multiple occasions. This certainly helped build his confidence as he was able to pick up wins over the likes of former world heavyweight champion Jack Sharkey and a host of other top-level contenders such as Fred Fulton, Larry Gaines, Paulino Euskadun, Obi Walker, and Tut Jackson. He was even on his way to a victory over former world heavyweight champion Primo Carnera before a suspicious disqualification. If there still is a question of Godfrey's placement on this list, just look at who the names mentioned shared the ring with as well. If you ask who's the hardest puncher in heavyweight history, and arguably even in boxing's history, you'll undoubtedly hear mention of the Black Destroyer, Ernie Shavers. Garland, Alabama bred, Shavers was a fighter who let his fist do the talking as he racked up 69 knockouts in 90 fights. This was done in a rich era of heavyweights against the best competition available. Had he fought in another era, Shavers would have had an even greater chance of becoming world heavyweight champion. In his 75 victories, Shavers knocked out 92% of his opponents, and those that didn't go down for the count would likely tell you he hurt them more than anyone they faced. Shavers was able to fight for the world heavyweight title on 2 occasions. The first was a 1977 contest against the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. The other is a 1979 matchup with another all-time great heavyweight, the Eastern assassin Larry Holmes. While Shavers failed to lift the gold, he certainly made an impression. Shavers also shared the ring with a number of heavyweight title challengers and contenders, including Ken Norton, Ron Lau, Jerry Quarry, and Jimmy Young. Sergeant Sammy Baker probably isn't a name that rings bells, and if you don't know him, you should. Fighting out of Huntsville, Alabama, Baker didn't win a world title but had a strong possibility of doing so had he had the opportunity. Primarily fighting as a welterweight, Baker fought in 170 bouts, winning 111. He compiled more wins than most boxers' career fight total. While some careers are measured in titles, some are measured in competition. Sergeant Sammy Baker fought a multitude of world title holders and challengers. This included a win and controversial loss to former world welterweight champion and world middleweight title challenger Young Corbett III. Baker went 1-1 with the underrated welterweight Baby Joe Gans. Baker also shared the ring with two-time world welterweight champion, the babyface assassin Jimmy McLernan, former world welterweight champion Jackie Fields, and former world welterweight champion and world light heavyweight title challenger Pete Latzo. As far as resumes are concerned, Sergeant Sammy Baker passes every test. If you thought this list was full of higher weight fighters, you're mistaken, because 5'3" former world featherweight champion Petey Cerrone is one of the greatest boxers, period. Cerrone's overall knockout percentage is 16, having only 22 knockouts in 155 fights. Be as it may, greatness isn't measured by knockouts, as Cerrone is also a part of the 100 Wins Club, and he had to do it the old-fashioned way by outboxing his opponent. The 1920s and 30s were littered with many all-time great fighters in the lower weight divisions, and there was no escaping a Hall of Fame challenge if your past was anywhere near world title contention. Petey Cerrone had to defeat former world featherweight champion Freddie Miller, who came into the contest with 181 victories in 202 fights, in a second try to become champion in 1936. Cerrone held on to the title for over a year before he faced and lost to the former simultaneously undisputed world welterweight, world lightweight, and world featherweight champion Henry Armstrong in 1937. Those two fighters alone trumped the resume of most fighters in history. Cerrone also shared the ring with a number of other world champions and title contenders, including but not limited to The Clutch, Sammy Angot, Fidel LaBarba, Davey Abad, Lou Feldman, Baby Manuel, Frankie Cavilli, and a host of others. If you don't know, get to know Petey Cerrone. The real deal Evander Holyfield is arguably the toughest human to come out of Alabama. He's the former undisputed world heavyweight champion as well as the former undisputed world cruiserweight champion. Had he continued at light heavyweight, he'd likely have been the undisputed champion of that division. Holyfield is the definition of fighting spirit. Holyfield was robbed of a gold medal in the 1984 Olympics, but he would not be denied in the pro ranks. The Atmore native still represents boxing in the state of Alabama as he built up a formidable legacy, challenging himself against the absolute best in the world. Holyfield also has the rare distinction of fighting in 4 separate decades. Holyfield's most famous fight is undoubtedly the second contest with Iron Mike Tyson in 1997, when Tyson took a bite out of Holyfield's ear, but he put on countless classics, including his trilogy with former world heavyweight champion Riddick Big Daddy Bowe, the first man to defeat Holyfield. Holyfield also shared the ring with former champions such as Lennox Lewis, George Foreman, Larry Holmes, Michael Moore, Dwight Muhammad Qawi, James Toney, John Ruiz, and many more. In other words, Holyfield fought a who's who of boxing throughout the 90s and 2000s. If it were not for one other fighter from Alabama, there's no question that Holyfield would be number one on this list. Seriously, you knew who was going to be number one. We spotlighted the Bronze Bomber earlier in this list, but there is only one Brown Bomber, and his name is Joe Louis Barrow. No relation to my dog, Barrow. The pride of Lafayette, Alabama. There is nothing much I could say that hasn't already been said about Joe Louis. Louis is widely regarded as the greatest heavyweight of all time. Louis is without a doubt the most accomplished heavyweight of all time. Louis is also one of the biggest names in the history of sports. The story of boxing cannot be told without mention of the second ever black world heavyweight champion in boxing history. The most significant sporting event in the history of the world is without question the June 22nd, 1938 World Heavyweight Title contest between Joe Louis and Max Schmeling of Germany. The balance of world power was on the line, and Joe Louis battered Schmeling and cemented his legacy as an icon. Louis also carried the torch for an entire race and is rivaled by few in sports history.